Good evening, members. Please be seated. Good evening, members. You will be pleased to know that I've brought my Strepsils with me, so I'll try not to cough and splutter too much. Are you all right, Lisa? I'm not contagious, so I'm told by my doctor. Welcome everyone to this evening's full council meeting, including members, officers and any members of the public, not only in attendance physically, but who may be attending remotely. Please be advised that the meeting will be live streamed and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be obtained in accordance with the council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the council's website. The following staff are in attendance either in the chamber or remotely: Larissa Reid, Chief Executive; Lisa Fillery, Director of Resources; David Clifford, Monitoring Officer; and Joe Millard and Kelly McKenzie from Democratic Services. Agenda item 1, the emergency procedure. I haven't been informed that there's a fire alarm due this evening, or test this evening. So if it does go off, treat it as an emergency. As we all know, exits to the right there or to the end of the lobby. Please don't use the lifts. If there's anyone in attendance that does need assistance, can they make themselves known now? Thank you. So item 2, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have received apologies from councillors Eakin, Anne Hampshire, Nicholas Hampshire, Henderson, Hunt, Ingleton, Jays, Pugh, Tatton, and Councillor Neil, so he may be late.
Thank you. Item 3, are there any members who wish to declare interests? Councillor Barnes.
Not interested, but Councillor is present on the online. I know it doesn't count in terms of the attendance, but he's online.
Okay. Thank you. Any declarations of interest from members? Yeah. Item 4, then the minutes of the council meeting held on the 22nd of February, minutes numbers 685 to 702. Is it your wish that I sign those as correct record? Members. Moving on then to agenda item 5, Mayor's announcements. I don't intend to go into all the details of functions that I've been to. Just to say that I've represented the council at 8 functions since the last full council meeting, and due to illness, the deputy mayor, Councillor Stevens, stood in for me at a function on Friday. So thank you for that, Sharon. It's once again my sad duty to inform you, and members probably already have been informed, of the sad passing of Alderwoman Anita Walker. I would like to now invite, I think, Councillor Baldock to some words first. Councillor Horton. Oh, Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are doing this all too often, sadly. Anita was totally dedicated to Faversham, and we will no doubt hear more about that this evening, so I will leave that to others. What I wanted to talk about was how fair she was in her period as mayor here at Swale. We were a pretty new group on the council at the time, back in the UKIP days, with little experience, and she always treated us with patience and humour whilst we learnt the ropes and never played the party card. In private, she was always friendly and honest, and never veered from her commitment to her town. I think it hurt her when she wasn't able to run as a Conservative in 2019, and she stood as an independent but without success. Even at 80, however, she still knew she had much to offer Faversham, and we agreed she could run as a Swale independent for both borough and county. Needless to say, it was the town seat she was most interested in, as seemed so often with Faversham folk. But we had planned to give it a really good go for her. At our meetings, she was really excited about having one last crack at it, as she put it, and this was really inspirational. She also regaled us with amusing stories, including from a time she was a dancing girl and even appeared topless on stage. There were other tales too, which I think I'd probably best not share for the moment. But I think it is true to say that Anita was absolutely full of life and enthusiasm. And for those of us that moan about being too old when we see 60 on the horizon, Anita clearly demonstrated that we can still have years of fun and active service to offer. Faversham has lost a true champion, Mr. Mayor, but we should celebrate the memories and achievements that she left behind.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Agreed. How sad it is we find ourselves standing in the council chamber to pay tribute to the passing of another one of our former colleagues, and one who also served as Mayor of Swale. Anita was Faversham through and through, born and educated in the town. On leaving school, she went to work in the offices of a local agricultural merchant. Soon an opportunity came up to take a civilian role in Faversham Police Station. I believe that in those days, her official title was typist. However, as you can imagine, she soon knew who in the town was doing what they should not be doing. Anita had a love of amateur dramatics, and combined with her fine singing voice, she took many roles in local groups, in pantomime, and in more serious plays. She was acclaimed for her portrayal of Queen Victoria. I'm sure that most of us have enjoyed episodes of Dad's Army on television. If you just pause for a moment and think of Anita, you will realise how well she played the role of Mrs. Fox on numerous occasions. In her early years, she enjoyed holidays in Paris with her friends. Anita joined Faversham Town Council in 2000 and Swale Borough Council in 2004, representing Abbey Ward. She served as mayor of both councils for Swale in 2015-16, a position that she was extremely proud to hold. She sat on the licensing committee and the Hackney Cab Committee, as well as numerous outside bodies, including West Faversham Community Association, Faversham Swimming Pool Management Committee, All Gunpowder Works Advisory Group, Benstead's Charity, and Faversham Municipal Charities. She was also a great supporter of Faversham Carnival Club. Kind-hearted and slightly quirky. For instance, she used to bring her toy poodle to town council meetings where the dog would sit underneath her chair. Until recently, she kept a number of guinea pigs. And she was a regular customer in Faversham Market, where her favourite purchase was gooseberries, which she would eat raw at home whilst watching television. Best of all, Anita was generous to her friends and charities, frequently giving up her time to help others. In summary, Mr. Mayor, Anita was a kind person, you could say a good sort, and a real trooper in getting along to meetings and events, even when it became hard for her to get about. She will be sadly missed by her many friends and her extended family. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You, Councillor Simmons. Are there any other members who would like to pay tribute to Honourable Alderman Walker, Honourable Walker? Councillor Martin, please.
is hard when you're saying goodbye again. And Anita to me was the lady that lived up the road from Nan for a very, very long time. She was a quirky sort, but always friendly and kind. And actually, she showed great kindness in 2019. She was in her ever-present Queen Victoria regalia about 3 days after the elections. Called all the newly elected councillors forward for the opening of and said, I want to have my photo with the new intake with the, at that stage, current outgoing mayor. She remained kind to those new councillors throughout, providing advice to anybody, regardless of political persuasion, coming up with ideas and going, well, have you thought about doing it this way? She was always at those social events. She always supported whoever the mayor of Faversham or the mayor of anywhere else was with their charitable events. She gave her time willingly and freely to anybody who needed it, who asked for help. And sometimes when they didn't, it was always with great kindness and always with a smile and camaraderie. It was certainly for me, one of the pleasures whenever you attended an event was knowing that Anita was going to be there because you were going to have a good laugh. Sometimes it would get a bit cheeky. Sometimes she'd ask, well, I do need a young man to come and do my garden. What are you up to on Saturday? Be careful, I might not let you back out again. But that was Anita. It was friendly, it was courteous, and it was that little cheeky grin at the end of the night. If you saw Anita struggling, you would always offer to help because you knew that help would come back threefold with the intellect and the help that she gave through her generosity. She was still serving as a Benston Charities trustee up until last May and was still fighting that corner and making sure that the new trustees were doing the right things as she saw it. She will be strongly missed by everybody across this chamber and no doubt everybody in the Faversham area.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. So members, if you would all join me in standing for a minute silence. Before I move on to the next agenda item, I'm sure everyone in the chamber would like to send their best wishes to Councillor Ken Ingleton, who is in hospital at the moment, I understand. He's been there for some number of days. I understand that he was going to be trying to join the meeting remotely. I can't see him on the screen. But I'm sure members we'd all like to send our best wishes to Councillor Ingleton. Thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item 6, then the leader's statement. I will ask the leader to read his statement and then I will ask the leader of the opposition to respond. Following that, I will invite other members to respond to the leader's statement. Members invited to speak will have 3 minutes. This item has an overall timing of 30 minutes, and to ensure broad fairness, I will try to invite responses from members of the administration and opposition groups in roughly equal numbers. This may mean that I deviate from the order in which members have indicated they wish to speak. Can I please remind all members that responses must be in response to issues raised by the leader in his statement. Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the final full council of this administration. And I think I may be forgiven for taking a moment to dwell on that. We came together in 2019 as a somewhat disparate collection of councillors from quite different backgrounds. Some of us may have been described as gammon, and others as woke. The country was in Brexit uncertainty and turmoil, and we came from various different shades within the national spectrum of Leave and Remain. It was a coalition of 5 groups, and of course from across the 4 regions of Swale. Very few of us had much council experience, let alone of running a council, and none of us had even sat in a cabinet. We didn't even know what we called ourselves, the People's Pentagram of Power or the Rainbow Coalition. Although I did point out at the time, rainbows do have 7 colours and not 5. But what we did know was that Swale had rejected business as usual, with all the crazy house building and lack of investment that blighted the borough. And we knew that if we concentrated on those areas where we shared common ground, we had enough to draw up a programme to see us forward. And it was a good, strong programme, one that saw investment in our people and our communities, rather than letting money sit in the bank, losing value and doing nothing for our people. A programme that wanted Swale to become a do-something council instead of a do-nothing one. A programme that set about boosting our heritage, our tourist potential, our businesses, both urban and rural. And we made it very clear we wanted higher environmental standards and a cleaner, healthier borough. A programme that sought to really engage with homelessness and rough sleeping and start providing affordable housing at a higher level. But it was also about trying to seek better engagement with people, with organisations, with our own councillors, irrespective of political groupings. And that's why we brought in area committees. And like turkeys voting for Christmas, we abolished the cabinet system and brought back committees. We had our programme. There was scepticism. They'll never last, some people said. Give them a year and they'll be out. But we did last. We concentrated on supporting each other, helped each other learn what the heck it was we were doing. We largely kept our upsets behind closed doors. Not that there were really very many. We got ourselves set to go. Our great plans were drawn up. COVID came along. And like the uninvited guest of the party, it stayed for quite a while. In fact, it's still lingering around the back door, awaiting a chance to come back in. And yes, this did somewhat mess around with our plans. Quite some time, we all had to take to our bunkers, or only allowed a short period of exercise each day. We had to learn how to do business through Skype, and then Zoom. Once you'd learned them, we got rid of them. We had to start using Teams. But we lost that face-to-face contact, that chance to have a quick chat about X, or what do you think of Y? It would have been very easy in such circumstances for trust to have been lost, for doubts to arise, or for schemes to come undone. Or quite simply, none of us have gone totally stir crazy. But we managed to keep going. Our programme of support and intervention happened to coincide very much with what was needed in the face of and in the aftermath of the pandemic. We were already planning the rebuilding of our local communities and economies, but suddenly became the prime object of government and councils across the country. We were already looking at supporting and promoting our local countryside and our green spaces that people suddenly became more aware of and realised just what beautiful areas we all lived in. We were already working on boosting our tourism offer when people started having to look at staycations, local days out. Despite the delays caused by COVID, we were still on course. And we stayed on course throughout the entire 4-year term. I think we have much that we can be proud of in this administration. One of the top 140 greenest councils in the world. Sittingbourne, one of the 5 most resilient towns in the country. Sheppey, finally being realised for the hidden gem that it is. This doesn't happen by accident. And I want to say a huge thanks to all our staff who have helped us with this transformation, and to councillors across the chamber who are working together for the interests of the people and communities of Swale. And yes, I include many members of the opposition parties in that. When opposition has been constructive and helpful, we have welcomed it and we have listened. I think about the politics really does work best. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Baldock. Councillor Horton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Leader, for your words. A unique night, one where I think it is fitting that you be allowed to celebrate what you have done over the last 4 years. There has been some good stuff. I think there's been a lot of okay stuff, and there's been some stuff which we didn't agree with. And we said that if that was the case, we would point out, and on occasion you have listened, and I am grateful for that. I will, if you'll indulge me, Mr. Mayor and Leader, talk about another team tonight as well. And that team is the staff that have been through with us on this journey for the last 4 years. The sad loss of Mark at the wrong time for this council. A change to a new, different and exciting senior management, and COVID. Throughout that, whether you were on this side of the chamber, sat somewhere in the middle, or way over on that side of the chamber, the council staff have worked hard for you to deliver what it is that you believe was important. They have been absolutely outstanding in very, very difficult times. And I had the pleasure of listening to the preliminary feedback from our peer challenge, which was that we have a council that we can actually be very proud of. It is a council that is insular in its approach and actually doesn't put its head up very high. But the staff that work for us on a daily basis were found to be exceptional in what they do. And I think we should thank them for that. I'll get back now, if I can, to the leader's speech. I think it's legitimate once in a while that you be allowed to mark your own homework, and I'm going to let you do that. But what I am going to say is there is no pot of gold at the end of this rainbow because you spent it all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Horton. Right, I'd now like to open up to other members for their response to the leader's statement. Right,
It's not mandatory.
I have councillor Martin first, and then councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Leader. I think the last 4 years, you look back, my God, we don't look so fresh-faced anymore, do we? Let's be. I can see the grey hairs on my mirror these days. I tell you that. When we look back and go where we started, here's that 5 groups coming together and coming up with these great plans of what we wanted to achieve and how we were going to achieve it. It was an easier time to an extent. Yes, we were dealing with the Brexit fallout and the rest, and we'll agree to disagree on that forevermore. But we haven't had this pandemic, which really did put the kibosh on an awful lot of projects. We can celebrate the successes in the housing, homelessness and lost sleeper area. We can celebrate that we have delivered an awful lot more new affordable housing. We have seen a huge reduction in the numbers of rough sleepers on the streets of Swale. I believe I'm right in saying an 86% reduction, which was among the top reductions in the country in that first year. We have seen those teams work tirelessly, but those were the same teams that then had to spend heaven knows how many hours on support for our communities during COVID. And that did slow some of our projects up. We all know that. We've seen it with Rainbow Homes. We were hoping that that would be delivering by now. We lost the best part of 2 years. There is no denying that. That being said, every member of staff in this council put so much effort in over the last 4 years. There isn't one of them that you can criticise. Dare I say it, I don't even think they even stuck to their hours, a single member. everyone worked tirelessly to get the job done. So we have to give huge thanks to our staff. I think we've also got to give thanks to our partners, because actually a lot of what we were doing was relationship building with other organisations, other agencies to get what we needed to get done. I'll let Councillor Harrison cover health because I'm sure that's where she's going with that particular one. But without that work to building those relationships, we wouldn't be getting some of the new facilities that we're getting in the borough. We wouldn't be getting some of the inward investment that we need in the borough. I think it's been an interesting 4 years. The ship has certainly had to change course a few times, and we've changed captain once. But by and large, I think we've proved the sceptics wrong. And I think we can go in very proud. And as Councillor Horton mentions, that initial feedback from the peer review, it's along the lines of what I was expecting, because I thought our staff were exceptional at what they do. And I'm sure that we will build on the final feedback that we receive after the election, whoever's here, because who knows, it might be some of us, it might be none of us. And I hope that feedback is utilised to
That's 3
increase the
minutes.
council even further. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Harrison, please.
Okay, so the answer, just to write down, Mike, is yes, I do agree. So the leader agreed with me that sometimes improvements for our communities isn't a question of shelling out loads of dosh onto that. And secondly, you said where we agree, where we think that the ideas from the opposition are good, we will implement them. And I'm sure that you were, one of the things you were referring to was the one from my colleague dead opposite. And that was the not every disability is visible. That was a very simple campaign, relatively cheap, and it makes and made a hell of a difference to the people in our communities. Not that I hover around disabled toilets, but I have spoken to a few people who have utilised it. And I mean, I know there was some abuse before, but the abuse people get, you don't look disabled. What are you using them disabled toilets for? And, you know, the respect and tolerance does sometimes seem to have gone out the window. So I'm sure that was one of the areas that the leader was referring to. And thank you, Alan, for raising that, because it was a good idea. And the other point is, which is relatively cheap, office time, obviously, member time, is the building relationships. If you build good relationships with people who don't have to talk to you, people who don't have to take any notice whatsoever of what you're saying, if you build good relationships, you can get information over, you can make them aware of the concerns, the deprivation, and all the rest of it right across our piece. And I think that is part of the reason, I know, huge part of the reason why we've got the facilities coming on Sheppey with the pub is because of the deprivation stats. But it's making our colleagues aware of these things and building good relationships. And the other one, which I'm hoping will pay dividends in the future, is that we've started building relationships with Southern Water. No, they don't have to talk to us, but we saved their bacon during that problem on the island because we put the Resilience Forum into gear to actually sort out their problem for them. And they did say when we had that cross-party meeting with them that they would welcome an ongoing, regular, I'm not talking every week, regular, dialogue, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So that if there's a problem, then you've built the relationship and you can say, yeah, you've got a problem on Sheppey, they're testing for the blue flag lovey, get yourself up there and sort it. This is the way it works. As I say, I'm sure that is what the leader was referring to when he made his comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Bobby, please.
Thank you very much. We know that in local government it takes an age to get anything done, but I think what the coalition has proved is things can be done, and quite swiftly. I think we've demonstrated over the last 4 years the long list of needs and requirements from our locals, and that we have gone through them. And I would like to say thank you to all the staff, because I certainly, within the portfolio that I had and within the committee structure of regeneration and property, they have worked their socks off to deliver an extensive list of tasks and projects. And it is immense what they have achieved, and we as a coalition and as a council have achieved over that time. So I think, would the leader agree that our saying, known by our fruits and seize the day for us as a coalition, is so appropriate? Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Bobby. Councillor Truelove.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I kind of instinctively feel in local government that coalition feels right. That to accumulate the talents of 5 groups ought to be inevitably better than depending on talents of 1 group. That's what I think in theory. The leader said a number of people thought we wouldn't survive. There's a local retiring MP who said to me the first time we met, it won't last long, you know, it'll be over by September. And I think that was a natural response, but it wasn't the case, or it wasn't the outcome. One of the strengths has been not just the people who led the coalition groups, but the whole membership. And I did look at the opposition, and I thought for a long time they were looking over and seeing where are the splits, where are the possibilities of getting them not all to vote together. And over again, everybody voted together without any pressure, but simply out of loyalty or understanding of what we were trying to do. I'd just like to say what had always struck me when we started was we had to create a cabinet of people in lead positions in the groups, remembering that 3 of the groups were actually new to the council. And I certainly had a slight element of nervousness about that. So not to dismiss what everybody's achieved, I would just like to say something about Councillor Martin, who agreed to do the housing and has shown exceptional understanding of housing policy, not just here, but across the country. That was a bonus. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to be that good, and he was. And then we had Councillor Valentine coming in with this Olympian understanding of the climate change issues, and able very early on to reject any attack because his knowledge is so much greater than anybody else's. I think he has achieved a massive amount, and I know he's not going to stand again, but I hope he will look back at these 4 years as a period of great achievement by himself as a politician, and again, only just elected in 2019. I think that's quite exceptional. Richard Palmer as well was new to the council and has been steadfast, sound and committed cabinet member, and has then taken on the chair of the committee. I think that's quite exceptional. And
3
I think
minutes.
Surely you want to hear more, don't you?
Yeah.
If I could just be indulged for a little bit longer, Councillor Saunders, I think, has been also an exceptional cabinet member. But just to end, Councillor Hall's comment about there's no gold at the end of the rainbow. We've spent it all. What I can't understand is, why didn't you, when you were in office, spend some of it? We found £7 million of money that was business pooled money. It could have been used before, and it wasn't. I've never understood, but I think I understand why that was. But don't blame us for using it, and try and make things better for people in Swale. Thank you, Mr. and thank you, indulgence, for letting me go on too long.
Thank you, councillor Truelove. Councillor Baldock, would you like to respond?
I was going to talk about pot gold. That's the only bit I had to come back on, really. Yeah, I mean, the financial constraints we're under, and so many councils are under, is about income, not about reserves. It's about facing inflation at 10%. You can only get 3% in, but we all know that. Don't buy our fruits and seize the day. Well, we tried our best, and I don't think we did a bad job of it. Might get around to, if we get back, we might get around to changing the colour scheme, though. That was something you wanted to do really early on, Councillor Bonnie. But I just want to say, I'd like to say goodbye to everybody who's not standing again. Thank you for being on the journey with us for 4 years, and same to those who are standing but don't come back. Good luck with all that you do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Right, move on then to agenda item 7, questions submitted by the public. We don't have any at this occasion. So agenda item 8, questions submitted by members. There are 8 questions that have been received by members. And the first question on the list is Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would the Chair of Regeneration and Property Committee update members on what steps have been taken since we were informed of our successful levelling up bid? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are you sitting comfortably? I'd like to thank the member for her question. On the 18th of January 2023, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities announced the award of £20 million investment in the multifaceted Sheerness Revival project. Since this time, we have appointed the delivery team consisting of a capital programme officer and a capital programme manager, both of whom will start this month in April. Held internal and external steering groups to kickstart the process, and we've agreed the formal project oversight arrangements with members to ensure reporting and project change processes are robust. This includes regular member oversight of communications and engagement work. We've drafted heads of terms for the transfer of Swale Borough Council's Bridge Road car park to the EKC Group as part of our match funding contribution to the project. We've answered questions from the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities regarding subsidy control, which has unlocked the grant funding agreement and means the first payment will be made in May 2023. We've drafted a mirror funding agreement with the East Kent College Group, setting out our working relationship and commitments regarding the Sheppey College extension. And we agree the contracting route for Beachfields and public groundworks.
Thank you, Councillor Bonnie. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did look at 4 years ago and I thought, well, what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Would the chairman agree with me that after 18 years of Conservative administration at Swale Borough Council and many thousands of pounds of residents' money spent on consultants and reports that have sat on the shelf, Sheerness and its residents are finally getting well-deserved attention in the form of improvements in the area, which should also impact the rest of Sheppey. This is hopefully the start of building back better in Sheerness. I pay tribute to my, the question was at the front, Mr. Mayor, if you'll listen. I pay tribute to my colleagues who supported Sheerness being the focus of a bid and the hard work of officers who put it together. Thank you.
Councillor Bonnie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm being wafted things, so I'm going to think slowly. Wafted things, and I can't quite read it right. Okay. So I've been told also this week we have signed the Memorandum of Understanding, which is a very critical document for the funding arrangement. And I think what this project shows is that we really, at the heart of this, want to make Sheppey great again. I think from my personal perspective, I agree with your comments that Sheppey has an awful lot to offer. Sheerness has been completely underrated. It's got a marvellous amount of heritage, listed buildings, etc. And I think we can grow that. And I think what started with a very small high street project has allowed us, with what we've done at Masters House and now with Levelling Up Fund, is put Sheerness and Sheppey back onto a platform of where it should be. And I think the coalition has put that at the very heart of what it wants to do. So thank you to the member for her question.
Councillor Bobby. We now move on to question number 2 then. Councillor Truelove. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question is the chair of the Environment Committee. Communities, beg your pardon. When we first opened the multi-storey car park in the centre of Sittingbourne, its usage was a little sparse. How is it performing now? Above or below expectation?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Triller. The multi-storey car park was part of the wider Spirit of Sittingbourne regeneration project. It was built to provide high quality, safe and secure parking close to the town centre. We sometimes received comments that the car park looks empty. This was because the multi-storey car park was future-proof for increased town centre parking and potential use for other surface car parks for housing. Another reason is due to the fact that ground level, which can be seen clearly as you walk or drive past, hosts the electric vehicle, disabled and parent and child parking bays. The disabled bays are not used as there is closer street parking in the town centre, but have to be provided by law in the multi-storey car park. The next 3 tiers are often busy, and the usage figures below clearly show an increase in usage over the years. There is still ample capacity in the upper tiers. As mentioned, the car park was built bigger than needed for future growth. 2019, there was 2,223 transactions, but the car park opened in September of that year. 2020, 16,256 transactions, but that was impacted by COVID. 2021, 36,849, and in 2022, there was 70,064 transactions at that car park. In the 2022-23 financial year, the car park has performed above expectations against predicted income. Income has been difficult to predict accurately, given it was a new car park and the impact of the pandemic, unknown to the impact of the pandemic, but we are on target to take over 100,000 over the predicted budget by the end of March. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer, do you have a supplementary, Councillor Truelove?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Very much. On now to question number 3 then. Councillor Knights, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The administration tends to improve the heritage aspect of the borough. Can Swales Heritage Champion indicate whether he feels this has been achieved? Thank you.
Councillor Baldock.
I'd like to thank the councillor for a question. Since the administration came into power in 2019, the council adopted its first ever borough-wide heritage strategy in March 2020. The strategy has a particular focus on tackling the borough's heritage at risk. The administration provided a sum of 250,000 to be used to undertake important proactive heritage work, including appointing a senior conservation and design project officer who was appointed at the end of September 2020. Since that time, we have conducted more conservation area reviews in 4 years than have been done in the previous 2 decades, and have additionally designated 1 more conservation area. Another 8 are already underway. Work is also underway in respect of a number of important heritage projects. I thought I was going to have my thunder stolen here, including the further development of the Sheerness Port Heritage at Risk project, and of course the restoration work on the Grade 2 listed Sheerness Clock Tower and other buildings. We've also undertaken a large number of smaller projects and various churchyards for which the council is responsible, ensuring all repairs are done to a heritage status rather than merely being made safe. The most visible of these works is the repairs to Sittingbourne Church wall. Couldn't really miss it. But we've also partially rebuilt the curtilage listed party boundary wall to the Grade 1 listed parish church of St Mary's Charity Faversham. Much of this work had been outstanding for many years and the situation was badly deteriorating. The interventions made under this administration have enhanced many of our churchyards and have also helped to save the council from larger bills in the future. Further, we also carried out repairs and significant enhancement of the Grade 2 listed East Church Aviators Memorial. We're also developing a GIS data layer, and I do know what that means, for Swale curtilage listed buildings and structures, which will prove invaluable in the future. We have begun work on our own Swale local heritage list, whereby local people and groups can nominate buildings or monuments or structures for inclusion on a local list, thereby enabling them to get a degree of recognition and protection. This is a really important development, but for the first time in Swale, we are able to locate and protect important aspects of our heritage, which may otherwise pass us all by. Phase 1 of the Swale designated landscape study has also been completed, and the Swale Heritage at Risk Register regularly updated. This is not a complete list. Didn't want to push it. And clearly there is still much more to be done going forward in terms of proactive work to ensure that the borough's historic and irreplaceable environment is properly understood, recognised, protected, and where possible enhanced. However, I certainly feel that I can conclude with some confidence that the heritage aspect of the borough is slowly but surely being improved, and I only hope this direction of travel can be maintained in the future. Finally, I'd like to thank our officers, Simon Algar, Jamil Kishore, and Trevor Wentworth, who have all been involved in these projects and who continue to work hard and creatively to seek to do justice to this borough's heritage.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Nice?
I don't, and I think you answered that lovely. Thank you.
So Nice, we'll move on then to question number 4, Councillor McCall.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question goes to the leader. In light of the claims local Conservatives are making about the lack of a local plan, does the leader believe delaying a local plan until the government passes the Levelling Up Bill was the correct move?
Councillor Baldock.
I'd like to thank the Councillor for this question. He is indeed correct. But locally, the Conservatives are criticising this council, claiming we have a lack of a local plan. Of course, it is factually inaccurate to say we have no local plan, as the current local plan, the questionably named Bearing Fruits, remains up to date, as it is in general conformity with the National Planning Policy Framework, and therefore retains weight in the decision-making process. Meanwhile, the current central government are continuing to progress the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, and as the way in which legislation develops, that bill will evolve. There are very sound reasons why the administration paused work on the local plan. These reasons remain very relevant. If the government sticks to its word and removes the imposition of housing targets on local authorities, then we will be able to move forward with a sound and sustainable new plan with a significantly lower housing number. To have not paused work on a local plan would have required this council to have demonstrated that 11,000 extra houses could be sustainably imposed on Swale. The fact that the Conservatives repeatedly criticised the administration for not having that new local plan clearly indicates that either they would have supported such a high number or they don't believe their own government.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Paul?
No supplementary.
Thank you. So we move on then to question number 5, Councillor Woodford, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The administration made one of its aims an increase of tourism into the borough. Can the Chair of Regeneration and Property demonstrate that this has indeed happened? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bonny.
Thank you, Councillor Woodford. I hope you're sitting comfortably. So thank you for your question. The Cambridge model, an economic impact assessment of volume and value, is commissioned through Visit Kent and is the primary means of measuring performance in our visitor economy, and that across the country. It is undertaken by independent analysts, Destination Intelligence, and is carried out biannually unless there are exceptional circumstances. The modelling undertaken in 2019 was used to provide a clear direction on visitor economy priorities. There were 5.4 million visitors to Swale, with sector generating £232 million to the economy of Swale, supporting 5,307 jobs. This administration period includes the challenging period of the pandemic, when visitor economy sector hugely impacted by the global and national restrictions. An additional economic impact assessment was therefore undertaken in 2020 to look at the immediate impact of the pandemic and to provide a new baseline for performance and to measure recovery. In 2020, the pandemic caused disruption to the visitor economy, and economic impact results showed a significant drop in the volume of trips and related expenditure compared to 2019. The results considered the impact of interventions such as Eat Out to Help Out scheme and We're Good to Go assurance scheme, along with the Red Job Retention Scheme, known as furlough. There were 3.3 million visitors to Swale, with the sector generating 102 million of economy to Swale, supporting 3,264 jobs. Swale saw the smallest decline in total visits of any district across the county, 39.4%. In 2021, sector performance continued to be affected by the pandemic. Restrictions were still in place in the first half of the year. The results, however, showed an encouraging picture of recovery for the tourism industry in Swale as domestic tourism returned, albeit not to the pre-pandemic 2019 levels. There were 4.6 million visitors to Swale, generating 173 million to local economy and supporting a small increase of 3,884 jobs. A further assessment in 2023 will determine the resilience of the visitor economy in Swale. It is envisaged that Swale will return to its pre-pandemic levels of performance. Targeted investment made in tourism products through the Welcome Back Fund, added value through extensive marketing and promotional initiatives, improved quality of public realm, and upgraded tourism product of the town centres. The return of larger events and increased confidence amongst visitors linked to the desire for short breaks and longer holidays will support a move towards pre-pandemic performance levels. We are supporting the sector through appropriate use of Swale's allocation of the UK shared prosperity funding. But specific delivery highlights include partnership working. We supported the Visit Kent and Kent Downs AONB Interreg Experience project with a focus on active travel and visitor product development, public realm improvement, signage and interpretation. We supported the successful development of the Merston Old Church as a community arts hub. We supported the relocation of the nationally networked Faversham Visitor Centre into the Town Council's premises. We supported Queenborough Harbour Trust in piloting a town key market. We supported Historic Swale and the launch of Wheels of Time product ahead of the county-wide rollout. We supported the relaunch of Faversham Destination Marketing Group, ensuring stronger links with the Visit Faversham, Visit Swale. We relaunched our business-to-business support tools such as how-to guides, research, development, information, image library, now embedded in the Visit Swale platform and Swale Means Business. And in partnership working, we also attended trade exhibitions to support coach travel. In terms of product development, we worked with pleasure boat operators to establish permanent product at Queenborough, the Jetstream tours. We secured additional beach hut provision. We refurbished new toilets and refurbished old toilets and created new toilets. We developed a walking and cycling map for Sittingbourne and Faversham in conjunction with Explore Kent. We piloted coach parking at Macnade in Faversham and identified new coach parking sites in Shepley and Faversham. There's a new Swell visitor map, and the management of the town centre start-back events post-COVID, including a 20s festival and 3 Christmas events, including a festive land train to reconnect residents to the high streets. We launched a visitor economy e-bulletin for businesses and supported the pilot of a new seafront festival, Funface Boars in Sheerness, supporting a new annual week-long festival of the sea. And we supported the familiarisation visits to the area post-COVID for journalists and social media influencers. This performance is against a backdrop of officers with responsibility for visitor economy being redeployed to community support for 16 months during the pandemic.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, councillor Bonney. I did rather eat it to the 30-minute time, but do you have a supplementary, councillor Wood?
No, I don't.
Right, so we move on then to question number 6, councillor Woodford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How much has this administration had to spend on maintenance of council assets in comparison to the previous decade? Thank you.
Once again, councillor Bonney.
Right. Councillor Woodford, I don't think you've got the complete answer if you haven't got a copy of it. You've only got half of it. But I will read you it all. As of the 16th of March 2023, the total annual spend on maintenance of Swell's operational and tenanted estate, including churchyards and war memorials, was £289,624. This was the third highest spend of any of 3 years across the past decade. The highest spend was the first year of the new administration, when £396,241 was spent on building maintenance. In the period 2019 to today, the administration has spent just under £1.5 million on building maintenance. Previously, it was less than that. Or on average, we have spent £368,000 per year. This compares with an average of £266,000 in the first 6 years of the decade. In addition to maintenance expenditure, the current administration has invested heavily in restoring the condition of Swell Borough Council's estate. For example, we've spent over £100,000 on the restoration of Sheerness Clock Tower, a Grade 2 listed building, investing £1.3 million to bring Masters House back to sustainable reuse, and committing £1.9 million to environmental improvements at Swale House. It is also worth noting that the administration had to find £831,885 to fix the damaged roof at Swallows Leisure Centre, allowing the building to continue to operate. This followed a rejected insurance claim for the roof because it had not previously been properly maintained by the previous administration. This administration has sought external funding to relieve the demands of Swell's own finances, securing, for example, £275,000 Salex investment in energy reduction works at Masters House as part of the refurbishment. This administration acknowledges that more needs to be done and has commissioned condition surveys for our built estate, which conclude at the end of the financial year. We are also revising the property asset strategy, which we have added to the forward plan for the Regeneration and Property Committee in September. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Bonney. Do you have a supplementary, councillor Woodford?
No, I don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. So we move along then to question number 7. Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the leader of the council explain what the council has done with the £80 million provided to the council by HM Government, which was highlighted by Councillor Horton in an article on Kent Online? There is a link to the Kent Online article and an extract from the article. Councillor Orton, Haddon, the Rainbow Coalition, Swell Independents, Labour, Greens, Liberals have received almost 80 million from the Conservative government in additional funding throughout this term. That's almost 4 times the council's annual budget, and yet it has overspent by 4 million this year and needs to take desperate measures to stay afloat. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer, Councillor Baldock.
And I'd like to thank the council for this question. However, oddly, I am unable to identify £80 million of additional funding awarded by the government to this council to deliver its services over the term of the current administration. In fact, the council's whole income for the entire 4 years of this administration, including council tax and business grant, totals just 78.4 million, compared with the 73 million of the previous administration's 4-year term. It is worrying that such spurious claims can be made when a press will run with these wild stories without even bothering to check up on the basics. In actual fact, the entire amount of government grant for the 4 year of this administration totaled just 8,553,000, a decrease of 8,889,000 from the previous 4 years, when the previous administration received 17.5 million. I think that's quite a difference. I think the other difference is that this administration has invested that money in our communities rather than leave it to devalue in the bank. Now, it's just possible that the opposition got a bit confused with the COVID money. We all went a bit crazy then. But when during the pandemic, the council acted as an agent for central government passport grants to businesses, that was 55 million. Well, but just to make this crystal clear for anyone who might not understand, this funding was not attributable to council services. It was not money granted to us. It was money to be given to businesses, and our staff did a blooming excellent job in doing so. The other peculiar claim made in the article is that this administration has overspent by £4 million. As you will all be able to see from tonight's papers, the overspend is actually just 531,000, most of which is attributable to this administration's recognition of the need to support homeless people. So, Councillor Palmer, I cannot explain what this council has done with money referred to by the opposition, because quite simply it doesn't exist in the world of truth.
Councillor Palmer, supplementary.
No, really, no, just the obvious fact that there's no pot of gold from the government. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer. So we move on then to question 8, the final question from members. Councillor Valentine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The forthcoming local elections will be the first in which voters will be required to produce an approved photographic identification. Government have enacted this legislation in order to tackle voter fraud. Please, will you tell me how many cases of voter fraud have been detected in Swale in recent local elections, and how many of these cases have resulted in a conviction? Do you have an estimate for the number of voters in Swale who will not already have an approved ID, and how many voter authority certificates have been applied for?
Councillor Valentine, Councillor Baldock.
I thank the council for this question. Actually, this isn't my answer. Right. No, that's not the answer I submitted.
It was Forrest who lost his papers.
Okay, Councillor Valentine, you're going to get the one without the barbs and the good bits. Right. Thank you. I'd like to thank the council for this question. It is a worrying one, as I've encountered many people on this election trail who are still not aware of this requirement. I'll be honest, one of them was my wife at the weekend. But luckily she has a postal vote. There are many, many more who are vaguely aware but don't really understand what is required of them. Last year's turnout will be hit considerably as a result. So we must assume that such a measure, depressing voter turnout and causing extra financial burdens on councils and administrations up and down the country, is utterly necessary to combat a deluge of fraudulent activity and deception. So, in Swale, no cases, none of voter fraud have been detected in recent elections. No convictions, zero, nada, zilch. Case. Didn't get that. In terms of a number of voters without photo ID, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities has estimated that between 2 and 4% of the adult population nationally does not have photo ID, which with an electorate of 110,000 would equate to between 2,200 and 4,400 voters in Swale. I suspect it's somewhat higher. As of the 3rd of April, we had received just 183 applications for voter authority certificates. Hugely worrying. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Baldock, do you have a supplementary, Councillor Hunter?
Mr. Mayor. I wonder if the leader of the council would instruct the staff at polling stations to record the number of voters who are turned away for not having suitable photographic identification and report that number to this council at the earliest opportunity.
I'm being urgently and very firmly informed, but I cannot instruct the Chief Executive to do that. But she thinks that it is already being considered. So, yeah, hopefully so.
Councillor Baldock. That concludes questions from members. Thank you very much, and we've concluded that just inside time. Anyone think we planned it that way? So we move on now then to agenda item number 9, the Bolton and Dunkirk neighbourhood plan. I invite Councillor Baldock to introduce the important proposed recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've all seen this. Excellent work by Bolton and Dunkirk. I actually think there's an awful lot to add, so I would be more than happy to propose the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Baldock. I'd like to now invite Councillor Gould to second the proposal and ask if you wish to speak now or reserve your right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to second the proposal and I'll speak now. That's okay. Yeah, I think this is an excellent document, been a result of a lot of very hard work, particularly by Parish Councillors Tudd and Fitchett, who were the leaders on this, and would like to record my maybe the council thanks to them in bringing this forward as best as possible. This forms a very good model for a plan, which is really rooted in the needs and aspirations of the community, and I would very much recommend that the council move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Members, does anyone like to speak on this agenda item? Councillor Hall, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't intend to keep council very long on this one. I'd like to echo Councillor Gould's recognition of the work that has gone into this. It has been through a number of committees, and actually I'm a little surprised that we have a recommendation, because actually we are required to make this unless certain conditions are not complied with, which deal with European legislation and significant variation on human rights legislation. Neither of those apply. So we are compelled, therefore, to make this a very good document into a legitimate document. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You, councillor Horton. Anyone else wish to speak on this agenda item? Councillor Baldock, would you like to sum up?
No, very good debate. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Baldock. So I'd now like to ask all members to agree the report. All those in favour?
Agree.
Thank you, members. So we now move on to agenda item 10. The next item on the agenda is the amendment to the current Swale Street trading policy. And I'd like to invite councillor Carnell to introduce the report, propose the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Swale adopted the position to allow the grant of the street trading consent in July 2010 and reduced the street trading policy, set out how we would apply the provisions of the Act since 2013. The latest version of the policy was adopted in March 2021. Whilst the current provisions contained with the policy have worked well for those traders who have 6 month or yearly consent, this has not been the case for those traders who have applied for a one-off consent to allow them to trade at various events held throughout the borough. The two areas of contention have been the length of consultation process, which is currently stated at 8 weeks within the policy, and the requirement for the applicants to obtain a basic data DBS check. These matters have been addressed by the licensing officer, and proposed changes to the current policy were presented to the licensing committee on the 15th of February. A summary of the proposal changes is shown at Appendix 2 to this report. Whilst there are amendments including which, whilst these amendments including which are for the sake of clarity, the two areas identified have been deemed to be unnecessary and have been deleted from the draft policy. Licensing committee were in support of the proposed changes and included instructions that a 4-week consultation period was appropriate so the draft policy could be formally adopted at this meeting of the council in line with the requirements of legislation. Consultation produced 4 responses, which can be seen in Appendix 3, together with comments from the licensing officer. And I, Mr. Mayor, propose the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Carnell. I'd now like to call on councillor Winkless to second the proposal and ask if you wish to speak now or reserve your right.
I second the proposal and reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you, councillor Winkless. Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Mayor. I sit on the licensing committee and think that these are very pragmatic changes that make a great deal of sense. I would like to take the opportunity to say that comes as no surprise because Chris Hills and her team are absolutely superb for this stuff. And this is a really good document. She also undertook to the committee to ensure that it appeared before tonight's council meeting so that we could conclude this business. And I think we owe it to her.
Thank you, councillor Horton. Members, would anyone else like to speak to this agenda item? Councillor Winkless, then, please.
Thank you. I quite agree. It's a very good document. Nothing further to add.
Thank you, councillor Winkless. So we have the recommendation. All those in favour? Thank you, members. We now move on to agenda item number 11, the adoption of the social media policy. I'd like to invite Councillor Hannah Perkins to introduce the proposed recommendation.
Firstly, I wanted to thank the Chief Executive for the amount of work that has gone into producing the social media policy, and also to thank all the members of the Standards Committee, who I think have worked really well as a cross-party committee to produce some really good work over the last 3 years. Social media has become a really important platform for how we communicate with our residents and how we communicate with each other. And how we speak on it is important, and how the public speak to us on it is important. Social media abuse is one of the main reasons people from underrepresented groups in politics don't stand. It comes up regularly in reviews of organisations such as the Forces Society, Operation Black Vote, and LGBT charities as well, and is an increasing concern for a lot of our residents as well. I just wanted to really draw your attention to the 2 points in the report for health and wellbeing. So health and wellbeing of councillors can be severely affected if they are victims of online hate, and that the council has a duty of care to protect councillors, and this policy sets out steps to support councillors who are experiencing online abuse. I think that that's something that we don't have at the moment, and it's going to be an excellent addition to the new councillors that are standing. I've experienced considerable online abuse, all the time, just for daring to kind of be a person in politics. Just today, even posting my nomination, people have called me all sorts of bizarre things. So it's something very sadly that we will have to put up with too much of from the public. It's a real shame. And then the second one, that in under equality and diversity, and I know that I bang on about not having anything in this box a lot, so I appreciate that it's in there. Swarborough Council is a public authority required to comply with the Equality Act of 2010. The Act prohibits discrimination against anyone based on their protected characteristics. The council and councillors must also have due regard to public sector equality duty, which obliges public decision makers to have regard to the need to eliminate unlawful discrimination, advance equality of opportunity, and foster good relations. And I think that's something that we can all agree when we were first elected was important to all of us. So thanks again to everybody who's helped put that together, and I hope that you accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'd now like to invite Councillor Bowen to second the motion and ask whether you wish to speak now or reserve your right.
Happy to second and reserve my rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Open the agenda item up to members. Councillor Harrison first, then Councillor Simmons, and Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Perkins and obviously the officers. Thanks, Lewison. Pure and simple, this is bullying. It ain't acceptable in the classroom. It wouldn't be acceptable in this chamber. But so far it's been acceptable online, especially if you anonymise your name, these funny names people apparently use. And I just think, well, you know, this has been sadly lacking. It's sadly lacking right across the piece, not just in council, but we're making a start. Presentation, well, yeah. Do you want to stand for council? You might get a few death threats when your family, but don't worry about that. You know, we're gonna put policies through. I mean, I know what I've been doing. It wouldn't be a policy. It would be something much, much worse, which we did discuss in this chamber many years ago, myself and Councillor Gordon Henderson. That's another matter. I just think that this is the start, and we need to go as far as we can on it. And I also think that we must call it out as soon as that. Oh, I don't think they realised what they were saying. No, love, you've done the training, you know exactly what it is, and you're up before the standards board. And the next bit, of course, is getting the standards board to have a lot more teeth than it's got. I can't emphasise enough how much this bullying impacts people. There are children in this country who have committed suicide because of online bullying. There are adults in this country who have committed suicide because of online bullying. It needs to stop. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We discussed this at a recent Constitutional Working Party meeting, and I fully support it. And I'm very sorry to hear that Councillor Perkin has received abusive messages today. My advice to her is perhaps to do what I do, which is just don't bother with social media, because quite honestly, it seems to me you can spend hours and hours looking at what people think, and as Councillor Harrison says, quite often people use a spurious code name, which only some people know. So, I think it's deplorable. I won't touch it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Horton, I do apologise. I had you down to speak. Did you wish to?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor MacDonald, please.
There is a solution, and I'm not bright enough to use these social media things, but someone did point out to me that there was something defamatory which had been put on about me. So I got the legal beagles to quickly contact the companies that provide these social medias, and it was taken down immediately. And they were quite concerned because they thought I might sue them, because if you broadcast something that's defamatory, then you, as a company, you can be liable yourself. So the answer is don't bother with the people, go straight to the the actual social media company. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. A very useful piece of advice. Councillor Whiting, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And like other speakers, I think this is a very good report. It's a very good reminder to members that they have a responsibility. We can't be held responsible for everything that the members of the public might do, and I deplore the kind of hate messages that have been referred to tonight. But we have it in our gift as members to abide by the policy. Transparency is quite important. I'm aware that I'm blocked from a number of members' comments, so I can't see what other members in this chamber are writing about me. And that's something I need to take up with the particular providers, as has been mentioned by Councillor MacDonald. I've had to take legal action against some in this chamber for things they've written, and had to get things removed. So I think going straight to the lawyer is a very good way forward. So I really do hope that everyone in this chamber will, from this moment forth, abide by every step that is spelled out in this very important document. I think it's one that we need to abide by if we're to have any credibility, and it talks about credibility in the report, Mr. Mayor. If we're to have any credibility with those that we seek the trust of, then we must be above reproach ourselves. So I will continue to report things to my lawyers if I see them, and I will continue to try to get unblocked from members who tend to block me so I can't see what they're writing about me. But that's a personal thing that I will do. But I will hold them to account with every letter and every word. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Whiting. Councillor Bonney, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think social media has changed somewhat over the years. There is something I would like to say, that over the last few years, a number of members from different aspects of the online community have been threatened with legal action, and it's not you, Councillor Whiting, but others, as a way of trying to gag and curtail freedom of speech. And it is actually quite insidious that our legal system is utterly abused by especially parties who've got extremely deep pockets to try to shut members up who have a legitimate right to freedom of speech. So I think you need to caution what has been said and be very careful, but also take heart that actually you should speak up and stand up for what you think, but without being abusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bonny. Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been involved with a few things online. But one thing I know is that I have been blocked by some members of this council. What I would not do is try to seek to make them unblock me. When you use platforms like social media, like Facebook, you have a right to block people. You have a right to block people because they go on too much. You have a right to block people if they're saying things that you don't agree with. It's one of the rights you have of using a social platform media. I'm not going to go to those councillors and ask them to unblock me. If they want to see what I want to print, they will. Or they probably got sock puppet accounts and they can see it through their other account and just then respond to it. I'm blocked by several members of the public. There are some people I've blocked. I think that's a legitimate way to carry on Facebook. I haven't actually blocked any councillors. I have been accused of it, but in fact, I was even challenged on a social media platform. Please unblock me so I can respond. And I checked my blockings. Nope. Miraculously, the blocking vanished that afternoon. But no, we have to temper freedom of speech with responsibility, and we cannot be authoritarian and draconian and force people to unblock people. That goes too far. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Baldock. I see no further hands, so Councillor Bowen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You can't disagree with any of the comments I don't think that's been made earlier or even regarding this. Earlier, I saw the individual who's used this in the past on a slightly grander scale, should we say. It was phrased and seen by Councillor Bonny as make SEPI great again. It was a certain phrase used by an ex-incumbent of the White House and hopefully personal opinion may not be returning anytime soon. But that's where this policy, I think, lies. Social media, whether you like it or you don't like it, is something that is ethnic-centric, and it is community changing that we need to address and get on board with this and make it work for the public, our residents, and for us. It is a tool that is there and it is not going to go away. Sadly, it is also a tool that breeds racism and discrimination. And that is disgusting. How you can have something that's social when the word social is usually a good, happy child sharing something that actually promotes such negative thoughts and actions is deplorable. And it's allowed by those who are hidden behind screens, keyboard warriors. Aren't they the greatest in the world? Who hide behind their phrase and put it out there, but when you challenge them, if you get to challenge them, no, sir, it wasn't me. I don't mean that. I'm not a racist. You hold that. Certainly are, sir or madam, because look at what you've just written on social media. Rhetorical question for us in this chamber, though. Do we ourselves at times foster negative behaviours in our comments on social media, or jibes, or name calling, or genuine differences of opinion because we have a different political position, but we make something teetering on bullying, teetering on abusing, teetering into discrimination. We should be setting the standard. And this policy is one step towards it. So proud to second it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bowen. Right, so I'd like to ask members to agree the recommendation. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, members. So we now move on to agenda item number the appointment of monitoring officer. I'd like Councillor Baldock to introduce the report and propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The current monitoring officer, Mr. Clifford, is leaving this post on the 24th of April this year. The council is required by law to appoint a monitoring officer, and we, under Constitution, we must take that decision as full council. Robin Harris is the deputy monitoring officer, and it seems perfectly sensible that he should now become our monitoring officer, and I think he will do a very good job of it. So I'm happy to make that recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Baldock. I'd now like to invite Councillor Horton to second. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right, Councillor Horton?
Well, second the motion or second the recommendation and reserve my right, please.
Thank you very much. I now open the debate to members. Councillor Perkin.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to extend my personal thanks to Mr. Clifford, who has been incredibly supportive of the Standards Committee since the beginning, and also has spent a lot of time with me cutting down my 8 million word proposals for council into reasonable motions. So yeah, just personal thanks for all the work that he's done to support the Standards Committee. Thank you.
Councillor Perkin. Councillor Bowen, please.
Mr. Mayor, echoing what Councillor Perkins just said, I've had the privilege, of working with David since I joined the council several years ago. Back in there when we originally had the policy overview committee, scrutiny committee, where David was very much probably the most frequent flyer to those of anyone. And his clarity, guidance and advice at times has been very useful to myself, and also that the additional tasks which he took on back in when COVID hit this council big time at the very top, and he helped steer us through it. But he should be very proud of what he has achieved, and wherever he goes to next, they have maybe have good luck with him, and good luck to Robin. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen. Any further? Councillor Whiting, sorry.
So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It may not be in order, and it's entirely at your discretion, but I think it would be in order, and I propose that we actually give a vote of thanks to David for his long and tireless service to this council. We've heard from members of their appreciation of his work and his efforts, and I just wonder whether it would be appropriate to just record a vote of thanks from this council this evening as a mark of that. Thank you. And I therefore propose.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Martin, whichever one.
Martin, I'll get my going
Okay. David, I'd just like to pass on my gratitude for all your counsel since I re-entered the council back in 2009, and especially during my mayoral year so far. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to have you sitting alongside me, covering up some of my foibles and faux pas, if you like, along the line, and giving me sage advice as and when was needed. I do wish you all the best in your new endeavours. And when we go back to the parlour afterwards, I will raise a glass to you. So all the best, David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for you, and thank you, members, very much for your warm words. Very much appreciated. It's been a real pleasure working with you all this past 13 years. So thank you very much.
So we have a motion on the floor. A vote of thanks to Mr. David Clifford for his service to the council. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, members.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I now call on Councillor Horton to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if I could beg council's indulgence, this is the last time that I will speak at a council before the election. And there are a couple of things I'd like to say before I get on to this. The first one is that Ken Hilton intended to be with us this evening. He unfortunately can't get online, but he has managed to text us a message. Says thank you very much for your kind thoughts, and he looks forward to meeting you all, or the vast majority of you, after the election. On that note, can I say to those who are leaving, there's before Swale Borough Council, there's Swale Borough Council, and there's post Swale Borough Council. Can I wish everyone who is leaving, whether that is through choice or because the electorate decided for you, that you have an excellent and fulfilling post Swale Borough Council. Can I wish everyone who's going to the election the very best of luck, but you will understand that I want some to have more luck than others. That then leads me to second this motion. And the reason I wanted to reserve my right was because I anticipated that there would be a warmth for David Clifford, and I wanted to give people the opportunity to speak about him. David, we have done our best to be the most awkward bunch you could possibly have had to deal with. We have thrown you curveballs left, right and centre as monitoring officer. Yeah, I led the way, but say is, whilst I don't think anybody in this room has agreed with every single judgment that you have made, I think everybody in this room accepts that you made those judgments professionally, impartially, and without a single hint of favour one way or the other. You have been a superb monitoring officer. It is a shame to see you go, but you do go with our very best wishes. And in time-honoured tradition, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, members.
Question of who follows you. I agree with the leader. Robin Harris has been a superb deputy monitoring officer. He has the confidence of this chamber, and I commend him to everyone in this room as our new monitoring officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. So that just leads me to ask members to agree the recommendation in the report that Robin Harris is appointed as the incoming monitoring officer. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, members. I have one more item of business before I bring the meeting to a close. I've been passed a note by the Director of Resources to ask all members to complete their party-related forms, which were sent out recently by Claire Stanbury for the 2022-23 year. Could you get those back as soon as possible, as they're needed for the external audit, and you'll need to submit your forms even if you have a nil return, and especially if you are no longer standing for election, as it may be difficult to chase you up to get your returns afterwards. So if you could take that under advisement, please, members.
Or you're being choking.
If I may, because I have some experience on this, it might be a good idea to resend that email, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, it'll be so far down the list. I, by the way, have done mine.
Thank you, members. So if I can ask the director of resources to ask for that to be resent to you, and if you could, please. Members, please. Briefly, just before I close the meeting, this, apart from my function at mayor making in a few weeks' time, it is my last full council meeting in charge. I'd like to say, members, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege being the mayor and the chairman of this auspicious body for the last 12 months. I'd like to thank you all for your patience with my little mistakes, and I'd like to wish everyone who's restanding in the local elections all the best. Hope to see as many of you back here next year, should I be fortunate enough to be re-elected. And again, to those members who are standing down, and those members who may be unfortunate enough to lose their seats, I wish you all the best in whatever you do in the future. And it just leaves me to say that if members would like to come back to the parlour, there are 1 or 2 drinks left in the fridge that needs washing before the end of my term. So that nicely brings me on to close the meeting at 20:41. Thank you, members.
No, I don't do that.